Hello and welcome to BharatShakti.in. I'm Nitin Gokhale. Last week, China's nominal parliament or the National People's Congress concluded what is now a regular feature in its 4-year cycle. The two sessions that are held by the Chinese Communist Party after every party congress, and the confirmation of Xi Jinping as China's supreme leader was rubber stamped by this token assembly of so-called representatives of people. But going beyond the rituals, what are the implications of the policies that have been adopted or will be adopted by Xi Jinping, and what is his new team going to do? What does it look like? What do they bring to the table? Is something that we need to know. And I'm delighted to host today a young researcher from Takshashila Institute based in Bangalore who looks after the China study or the Indo-Pacific study, and who's someone who has written a couple of original pieces on India-China relations recently, and therefore deserves much more attention from our viewers, and also we need to know from him. So let me introduce Amit Kumar to all of you. So Amit, welcome to this program and thank you for your time. So let me ask you first up, what are your two significant takeaways from the two sessions that concluded in Beijing last week?
Yeah, before I answer that, I would like to give a brief overview of what the two sessions means to our listeners. The two sessions refers to the congregation of China's two topmost deliberative bodies of CPC that meets once in 5 years, and this was the inaugural session after the 20th Party Congress. The two bodies in question here are National People's Congress and its advisory body called the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, also called as CPPCC. The newly constituted Congress is the 14th NPC, and the strength somewhere ranges around to 3,000. And the membership of the NPC consists of members that are indirectly elected by the provincial legislatures, in addition to representation from each of the political parties, the PNA, private enterprises, and even religious groups, amongst others. So as you correctly said, the NPC usually is referred to as a rubber stamp, essentially because it does what is to endorse the already decisions that have already been taken or even in implementation stage by the party. And so the new development, what we that we see is somewhat that we already know, and these concerns appointments, the economic policies, parties' other public priorities, institutional reforms, etc. Yet, despite being a rubber stamp, the underlying idea of the two sessions is to give an impression that the policies of the party are an outcome of a deliberative process. And this projection becomes necessary given that China trains and projects itself as a whole process democracy, an assertion that I cannot deny, given the whole of NPC unanimously this time elected General Secretary Xi Jinping as the president of PRC and the chairman of Central Military Commission for an unprecedented third terms. No abstentions, no veto. So coming back to the developments, the two key developments that if I look at the developments across the two sessions, in addition to several key takeaways, I could not help but notice a few contradictions. And those contradictions emerge in the arena of appointments and the economy, most importantly. And I'll come to it. So if you look at the appointments, 3 appointments, I would say stand.
Foreign minister, the premier, and the defense minister, right?
Yes, right. These are 3 important key appointments that are of interest to me. I'll tell you why. So Li Chao's appointment as Chinese premier, although it wasn't a surprise, but what is of interest to me is his role as the premier and the head of the state council. And why I say so is Li owes his appointment and position to his loyalty to Xi Jinping, and he has been entrusted with his job to lead the state council. Also, Li has been hailed as a pragmatist and a proponent of an open economy and pro-business, who supports an equal treatment of the private economy at par with the state-owned enterprises. So one would expect that he will exercise greater control and autonomy now with regards to economy, now that he has the confidence of Xi Jinping. But at the same time, it needs to be seen how much of an authority does he actually exercise as the head of State Council, which has seen a consistent erosion under Xi Jinping ever since he took over. So its role, the state.
Does he own this elevation to the fact that he handled the COVID crisis in Shanghai with an iron hand? He was absolutely ruthless in implementing the zero COVID policy, or it goes back much longer than just that particular appointment?
I mean, the association goes back to Zhejiang when Li Chang served as advisor to Xi Jinping. But yeah, and his elevation to Shanghai's party secretary was also attributed to that association. And yes, he was one of the primary figures who actually put in place Xi Jinping's ideas with regard to zero COVID diplomacy. Zero COVID policy. So yeah, there are both factors that have actually contributed to his rise as the premier of Chinese state. So yeah. So I just finish it. So what remains to be seen is that how much of an authority does he actually exercise? Given that he is confident, but Xi Jinping, and there were expectations that when he would come to power, we would see an economic policy that would be different from what Xi Jinping has so far pursued, that of crackdowns and regulations, tightening of the regulations. But again, Xi Jinping has been quite clear with regard to his preferences vis-a-vis the private and the private platform economies, including the big tech, as I have seen, that the contradictions. You are only supported so long you to the party line. And also, more importantly, lastly, what is important and worth questioning is whether Li Chang will come back as chairman of the party leading small group on economy. So traditionally, this body has been led by Chinese premier until Xi Jinping snatched it and put it under his command. And Li Keqiang had to let the position go. But now that Li Chang is as a Xi loyalist has been elected and appointed as Chinese premier, it will be interesting to look if he will come back as the chairman of this commission. Lastly, on the two other appointments, I would say there again is a contradiction. Why I say is this because when this Li Shangfu was appointed as the defense minister of China, it was assumed that this is an assertion by Chinese because Li Shangfu was someone who was sanctioned by the U.S. For his role in undermining the sanctions that the U.S. had put in place with regards to arms deal. But there's also a contradiction, which wherein you see the Chinese foreign minister who was and his appointment, Qin Gang's appointment is seen as somewhat where the Chinese are trying to make a course correction to its diplomacy, which became synonymous with wolf warriorism. And so there are conflicting decisions, conflicting signals, mixed signals that the Chinese are giving out. And so this needs to be managed, and how this will be managed, it remains to be seen.
Sure. If you look at the interest that India must take, then it will be a matter of interest that who will be named as the special representative for talks with India. Will Wang Yi continue to remain SR from the Chinese side, or it will be the new foreign minister who will be given that responsibility? Is not yet clear. What is your guess? The best guess?
So I would say Xi Jinping has so far shown great faith in Qin Gang. He has been elevated. He has in a short tenure of his diplomatic career, he has been elevated to as China's foreign minister, and then very quickly he was also elevated as a state councillor, which Wang Yi postulated. I think, if I'm not wrong, he took another 5 years to become the state councillor on at this front. So there's a possibility that Qin Gang could serve as the state representative. For now, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Sure. So let me go back to the premier's appointment. He held a press conference and appeared to be reconciliatory, appeared to give a very positive message to business, also to the world business community, that China is open, China is
Right.
well, it's difficult to achieve the 5% growth. We will strive and will strive for high tech development rather than just development. Now, is
Right.
that a certain change, or is just a matter of rhetoric to make sure that multinational companies don't desert China? And now that they've been a little rattled with what is happening inside China in the past few years.
So there are multiple strands to it. Chinese economy has lately suffered a lot and has set a target of, as you rightly said, 5% GDP growth for upcoming fiscal. I mean, it's the lowest in the last 40 years. And the factors contributing to it was the slumping global demand that has impacted Chinese imports, exports, supply side constraints that was further exacerbated by the pandemic and zero COVID policy, and then the worsening business environment and especially the geopolitical competition that is ensuing between the US and China. So boosting investor confidence and support and showing support to private enterprises has become a key priority for the government. And this was one of the major issues that was also deliberated during the two sessions. And the party has lately reiterated the two unswervings quite frequently to show, and it essentially means that the private enterprises will be supported at par with state-owned enterprises and to boost the confidence. But what is interesting is this reiteration of the two unswervings has been supplemented with the three unchanged, which essentially means that the policy of the government uh, with regard to the private enterprises remains unchanged. So now this needs a proper appreciation, because if the party stays that the policy has remained unchanged for the unchanged, then if you look at the developments in the last 2 to 3 years, it has essentially been that of tightening of the regulations and crackdown. So what is essentially the hidden message here is essentially what it is saying, that enterprises will be supported only so far they will toe the party line. But again, and if you look at the AmCham report that came out 2 months back, they did say the private the business environment, the business community have hesitations with regard to the supply side constraints and the party interference. Even, and this report was endorsed by European Chamber of Commerce in China. It said that the supply side constraints and the geopolitical competition are really hitting the newer investment decisions by these communities. So China is under shock, and it needs to do and show confidence, boost confidence of the private economies. But these recent actions that the Chinese took with regard to, even if you see with regard to the property sector market or the stock market or the secondary markets, these were largely seen as tactical adjustments to allow for more investments to come in. But I think there is some degree of hesitation among the private enterprises still, and it seems to be seen how this plays out, and we'll have to wait and watch uh, how it goes.
Right. Let's look at the security and foreign policy issues from the Chinese perspective. Now,
Right.
the relationship between the United States and China is at its lowest ebb, perhaps in the past 20 years, or whatever parameters we apply. And of course, it has problems of AUKUS being created, Quad, which it always objects to, also stepping up engagement between the member states. And then there is like what you wrote in one of your pieces about the two-front conundrum with India
Right.
being one of the fronts there. And then the border issue with India still lingers on, and there is no resolution, or there is no solution in sight. So, how does China look at the security situation, if not the foreign policy situation first?
So, how China defines the current external environment is that it is under siege. The external environment is under the countries, the democratic countries led by the U.S. are pursuing a policy of containment, and there is extreme pressure being applied on China because China is a rising power, and this is how the narrative goes in domestic politics. And so we saw like as I did earlier discussed, there was a element of Chinese diplomacy which came to be known as the Gulf War diplomacy. And but there have been tactical readjustments in this sphere as well. Again, all these developments have come after the 20th Party Congress, both of the economic front and the foreign policy front, wherein we saw that the U.S. was trying to the demotion of Zhao Lijiaji, one very ferocious Chinese spokesperson, and then elevation of Qin Gang as the foreign minister. It pointed to an assessment within the Chinese leadership that they need to toe down on this wolf warriorism and have to make an outreach to the major countries. And we saw that in this when when China actually reached out to the U.S., although it got sabotaged by the Balloon. But also to there are trade talks happening between Australia and China, and then it also made an outreach to Japan. Although we have not seen that on the India-China front. But again, if you, as Xi Jinping has a thought on everything, he has a thought on diplomacy as well. And this could be again a retreat. But if you look at Xi's style of diplomacy, it means it gives an impression that has to be an aggressive. If you look at the division that he has made on of the Chinese history on since the party took over, it was categorized. It was classified as the first under Mao was of standing up. The second was becoming prosperous under Deng Xiaoping and the other two leaders, namely Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. The third, the new era that he describes, is that of becoming strong. And like, when you reiterate it again and again, it gives a sense of message to their diplomats, wherein they are told that you have to resolutely safeguard your interest. That's no brainer. Every diplomat, the objective of diplomacy is to safeguard the interest of the country. But when you reiterate it again and again, there's a hidden message there. And I'll draw you to the example of the incident that happened at Bali G20 summit, G20 summit, wherein Xi Jinping was seen schooling Canada's PM Justin Trudeau for the leak of a conversation that they did not like it. So this is this is something which tells me that the style of Xi Jinping's diplomacy is rather aggressive, and this adjustments that are taking place are only again very tactical. And this is also very it's a reactive one also, and it's partly can be understood because they perceive that they're under the siege by the democratic countries. So this is the development that I see on the foreign policy.
Interesting. And so therefore, I think democratic countries, including India, must be prepared for a more aggressive China under Xi Jinping, at least for the next 5 years, if not more, is probably the reason why.
At least in India. In my sense, unless there's a rapprochement between the US and China, we are not going to see one on India-China front. I mean, and that has been amply clear with the signals. I mean, Qin Gang on becoming after becoming the foreign, assuming the post of foreign minister, he did not call out. He called out every other major counterpart from every other major country, but not from India, Dr. S. Jaishankar. So I think unless, because China sees its relationship with India as that linked to in a larger competition with the US and India as exploiting the competition, the US-China competition. I think unless there's a rapprochement between the US and China, I think we are not going to see one on easing of tensions on India-China front.
That's a fair warning, and I think that's a good note to end our conversation on. Thank you very much for your time and your insights, Amit. Do keep writing, and of course, we will invite you back whenever the occasion arises. But for the time being, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
So viewers, that was a researcher from Takshashila Institute in Bangalore, giving us his perspective on what one must expect going forward. Now that the new foreign policy, defense, and the leadership in China is in place, including a new premier, a new foreign minister, a new defense minister. So keep a lookout for the developments. Do keep watching BharatShakti.in. And of course, send us feedback on our usual channels, our usual modes of communication between us and you. And we will come back with some new discussions, new programs in the future. For the time being, it's goodbye.